If it crashes and burns, we'll be the only ones who know, and anyone watching on Facebook right now. But I'm going to read a new section that I've never read before, because it was one of my favorite sections to write. Yeah, I've just never read it before. So, here we go. But the only thing you need to know is that this actually happens way later in the book. This is like 200 pages in. And it's in the Sean section. So we're following Sean, 5 years old, in 1983. So I'm gonna look at the time. It's now 7:29. Let's see if I can read a few minutes of this, and let's see how far we get. But yeah, here we go. If you're just now tuning in, you are watching Satan's Playground, Devil Worship in America. Manuel Cassavetes soberly intoned, speaking directly to the camera. I'd like to encourage parents to please make sure your children aren't watching this unsupervised. The glare of the studio lights was too bright for Sean. He couldn't help but wince and squirm in his seat. His hair clung to his sweaty brow. His suit was itchy. His collar only grew tighter at his neck, his tie constricting around his throat. What you're about to hear is shocking, Mr. Cassavetes continued. It is heinous, but above all else, it is very real. Sean kept his attention on his host. Though we may never know what the exact number is, he said with scripted precision. As of this live broadcast, it is estimated that there are over 1 million practicing Satanists in the United States. 1 million. The mind can only reel at such a staggering figure. A woman from the studio audience gasped, using her hand to fan herself with Pentecostal furor. I mean, this felt more like church services to Sean. Mr. Cassavetes preached his own televised form of fire and brimstone. The producers populated their pews with a motley assortment of audience members, churchgoers, self-professed devil worshippers, heavy metal fans, and school marms. A few even waved homemade signs. Keep Satan away from our babies. McDonald's donates 2 to the devil. Ray Kroc gives 20% to Satan. The devil doesn't belong in our schools. And from where Sean sat, there were a shapeless mass of silhouettes. He hardly understood why he was here. He only knew that grown-ups had become very interested in his story. These devil worshippers are a highly organized, well-funded operation, wholly unknown to those around them, Mr. Cassavetes said. They can be members of your church, your school, your own family. They can be the parents of your children's classmates, politicians, or even police officers. The people we trust with our safety, our lives, they are everywhere. And the moment the man with the headset announced that they were taking a commercial break, Mr. Cassavetes seemed like a completely different person. His body relaxed, all that fury faded. He was nothing but smiles now. I'm on fire tonight, he said to no one in particular, as a cluster of fussy assistants swarmed around him, powdering his temples and touching up his subtle eyeshadow. His unnaturally tan skin seemed incapable of perspiring. One assistant took a small, fine-toothed comb and groomed his mustache. That mustache, full-bodied, perfectly coiffed, was clearly Mr. Cassavetes' most distinguishing feature. Better pace yourself, the man with the headset said. 84 minutes to go. Oh, you ain't seen nothing yet. Mr. Cassavetes glanced over at Sean as his team continued to primp. When they made eye contact, Mr. Cassavetes gave Sean a wink, just a little something between the two of them. Don't worry, kid, that glint in Mr. Cassavetes' eyes said. We got this. Sean and his mother had originally been in the live studio audience in the front row. But at one point during the broadcast, Mr. Cassavetes had stepped down from the stage and addressed Sean directly. He placed a comforting hand on the boy's shoulder and squeezed, letting him know that the cameras were on both of them now, that all of the world was watching him. It was also their cue that their segment was coming up. Shortly after that, the man with the headset had ushered them on stage. "Remember to breathe," he whispered to Sean just before leaving him alone with his mom. "Good advice." Sean nodded, repeating those sage words. "Remember to breathe, remember to breathe, breathe." People swarmed around them until, just like that, they scurried backstage. Sean glanced out at the audience, all their eyes staring, waiting for him to, "And we're back in 5," the man wearing the headset announced, all of them licking their lips. 4, glistening lips. The man with the headset silently brought up 3 fingers, their forked tongues, 2 fingers. They were so wet under the spotlight, so red. 1. Mr. Cassavetes gave another wink and then turned to the camera. "Hello, and welcome back to our show," he said. "We have some very special guests with us tonight." Mom hadn't let go of Sean's hand through the whole show. Her palms were sweating. She must have been nervous too, maybe even more nervous than Sean. Anytime anyone approached from behind, she'd startle. It was happening more and more lately. Mom was afraid of everything now. And who could blame her? Her son was the target of a secret network of Satan worshipers. The devil was everywhere, waiting for her to slip, turn her back, let him go. And that's when the devil would pounce. That's when his devotees would take Sean away from her. She couldn't tell for sure who they were or how many, but she was positive that they were among them right now, hiding in the studio audience, perhaps even on the television crew. "They look just like us," was how Mr. Cassavetes put it. "They are everywhere."